I want to move to Trump for a moment,
Sure thing.
and the Iran talks. Now, the reason I want to move to it, do you think this is a bluff? Do you think he would actually attack? Israel apparently is prepping for an attack under the notion that the talks will fail. Trump has sent Witkoff. I mean, if you take it on its face value, Witkoff seems to be the realist out of the group, where he sidelined many people in the State Department, and he keeps using Witkoff over and over and over and over again. By the same token, he's surrounded himself by lunatics, whack jobs, Zionists. For example, when you get like Hexa, for example, who again signal leak stuff is just outlandish. Many of these people, Huckabee believes Jesus is going to return at some point in Israel. Like, these are the people that he's put into his cabinet. All of these people are agitating for war. Ryan Grimm broke the story that the National Security Council, the person that Donald Trump is putting in, effectively right here, worked inside the Israeli Ministry of Defense. So you are putting somebody, this is as bad as Joe Biden. And that's why when people say, oh, Donald Trump is something different. If you remember, Joe Biden sent the representative from Lebanon, who was an IDF soldier, as Israel was bombing Lebanon. So this is not a departure from the way that these guys have behaved. So don't give me this shit about, oh my God, Donald Trump is doing something radically different in this case. He is effectively putting an IDF soldier in his cabinet to overlook Iran-Israel issues. All of these people around him want the U.S. to effectively go to war on behalf of Israel.
Yes.
How does Trump, who has rhetorically boxed himself into this position of, if they don't do this within a certain time, I'm going to bomb them, is that purely for the optics of, well, I tried to negotiate before I go on a bombing run and effectively destroy the world economy? Or is he serious? See, the problem that I have is I don't know what is in his mind. And because I don't know what is in his mind, I don't know what he's trying to actually do.
I often feel that even he doesn't really know, what's on his mind.
Not. He changes, last person who's in the room.
Yeah. So, there's interesting, honestly, what's been happening with the Iran talks, because of everything you just described. The last thing we heard is that apparently the Iranian side, it's surprised at the seriousness of the U.S. side, at the fact that they haven't made they haven't crossed any red lines in their demands. Right? Iran's red lines are their missile program, are reducing their uranium, the enriched uranium they already have. Dismantling their nuclear program, they said that's simply, that's not going to happen, because remember at one time they were talking about the Libya model. We don't know how the Libya model ended. So, of course, Iran is going to say no. And they are also saying the 2015 deal, right, the Obama-era Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, is no longer any good to us. This can no longer even be the basis for anything. Because obviously it's been 10 years and then 7 years since since Trump unilaterally pulled out, left Iran, and the European Union essentially holding the bags there. And they actually tried to revive it, remember? Like for years, they were trying to revive it without the US. And the EU simply was not willing to make any concessions at the end of the day. So now...
Wait, the European Union couldn't carry the burden. Like I distinctly remember when Trump pulled out, the thought in the White House was, Europe can't cover the costs that basically sanction costs. Europe can't do it. They don't have the economy or the economic power in order to cover all of the expenses and businesses. Because their first thought was, okay, well, we'll cover these businesses so they can continue to do this. They found out that they couldn't do it. I think Total Oil might have been covered or something like that, but they couldn't do it.
Yeah, no, and we know that the European Union doesn't really like to do anything without first, getting the seal of approval from Washington. So I think that's also what happened there. But so the talks have been going. We're headed to a third round on Saturday, this coming Saturday. On Wednesday, tomorrow, the technical teams are actually going to meet to discuss the framework for a potential deal. And of course, Israel is fuming, right? You see it. On Saturday, when as these talks are taking place, right after the talks take place, and they are talking about how positive they were, etc. Netanyahu puts out this recorded message in which he says, "Well, I will never allow Iran to have a nuclear weapon, and I don't care, etc., etc." And then there's the reports, of course, about like we're gonna go hit Iran even if the US doesn't back us, because what they say. So I wouldn't put it past them, honestly.
Real quick, that story is weird Because that's, even in that story, it's like, well, we'll hit them even if the U.S. They still need U.S. help. The story
Yeah, like
even says, well, limited help from the United States. Okay, then you still need help from the United
they
States.
need at
You're
least, like,
alienating
the
the U.S.
refueling planes, because I don't think they have the refueling planes needed to actually, because it's not closed. They need, and they can't. I don't think, because surface to surface is gonna get shut down. They need to get their planes actually over the sky. This is why this base, Diego Garcia, right in the Indian Ocean, is being so heavily militarized. Going back to what you were talking about the cabinet, Trump's cabinet, he has actually, and this is what to me is the most interesting, he has actually kept it a bit separate, right? Like the hawkish whack jobs like Marco Rubio, they are essentially sent to Latin America, right? He said, like, go and do with Latin America what you want. Let us deal with Iran. And then you have Steve Witkoff, who has presented himself, and apparently even during these talks, as a very pragmatic, as a person actually willing to let democracy work. And that is very interesting, right? That is very interesting, because you wouldn't expect that from a Trump government, right? Like, not to say that Joe Biden was any better, but he didn't even try to have talks with Iran, Joe Biden.
Yeah.
Donald Trump is actually sitting down now. We're going to be for 3 rounds. Trump, like I said, who knows what is in his mind? Because one day he says, I want Iran to be great. Then the next day he says, they cannot have any nuclear anything, right? Any program or anything, and I'm willing to strike them. And the next day, whatever he's going to say. So everything's up to his whims at the end of the day. And it does feel like, currently at least, war is not really war with Iran is not in his interest, but that doesn't mean it's not going to happen, because again, look at Diego Garcia and look at Yemen. Look at what they've been doing in Yemen.
It is fascinating to me that he has used Witkoff for everything and sidelined his State Department. Like, he's literally sidelined the State Department on everything. It's like he filled it with neocons and is like, okay, you guys sit over there. Hey, you from the real estate industry, you realist who doesn't really have these political ideologies, go negotiate. Go to
he
Russia.
sends it to the most volatile, right, areas.
Go to Russia, go to Oman, go to Rome, go to Israel in this nonsense deal that they made that was purely just to give Israel time to reload. Like, it is fascinating to me that Rubio sideline, Walls sideline. Like, they may be in the room in a conversation, but from the standpoint, the guy who goes to negotiate and comes back to Trump. And by the way, Witkoff has been getting hit left and right. Oh, he's a Russian stooge. Oh, he's an Iranian stooge. Oh, he's not, he doesn't know what he's doing. They've been hitting him consistently, especially since, as you pointed out, Israel doesn't want a deal. And they have been bitching and moaning bloody murder that Donald Trump is effectively saying he may want a deal. I am fascinated by it. Now, the catch becomes, how much political latitude does Witkoff have? Because if you remember, Witkoff went to Sean Hannity and effectively said, well, it's going to be 3-point-something% enrichment. Okay, that's not that's not the Libyan model. Like, that is definitively not the Libyan model. He gets pushback, and then he comes out with a tweet effectively saying, well, this is going to be a Trumpian deal, and they're not going to have any nuclear thing. Okay, so which one is? You've contradicted yourself in regards to the statement. Now, the foreign minister for Iran was talking like Witkoff the first night, meaning we're willing to deal with the nuclear part. We're going to keep some level of enrichment, 3.6%. That might be it. That might be okay. Meaning they sounded like they were saying the same thing. So in the beginning, it sounded like they were saying the same thing. When he got the pushback, he recoiled into Libyan model stuff. But then he goes and negotiates, and they make it through the red lines conversation. Okay, that's interesting. Because, in Rome, they were supposed to be talking about red lines. What are our red lines? Do these things cross in a particular way? And then you go to the other one, or going to the other one, and they're talking technical details. Okay, that's also interesting, because the technical details is 3.6%, 2%, 1%, getting rid of all of it. Meaning they're still having the conversation. As opposed to throwing the table over, so we're done, we can't make a deal. There may be enough political give where a deal could be made. Now the catch becomes, what does Israel do? Do they say F Trump and attack anyway, knowing that the US will most likely back them in some kind of attack? I mean, I don't, like, it's fascinating to me. Here's the thing. When I talk to Brian Millett, he has a very coherent idea of this is why these things are happening. And it's coherent. You can put them together. They make sense. If you're looking at like foreign policy in the way, because if you're looking at it, it's like this is too outlandish to be what it is. It's just too outlandish.
Yeah.
Like 160% tariffs or 265, whatever the hell he did on China, is ludicrous, right? You're damaging your country. You are obviously damaging your country with this stuff. You can see it day to day to day to day.
Yeah.
And a person like me comes on and is like, okay, why is he doing that? This makes no sense. He can't be this comically inept. But then I could say, well, he's doing this because he has a false impression of business, that he is 80 something years old and his idea of business are factories, industry, etc., because that's what he grew up with.
Yeah.
And that is what he's effectively trying to bring back to the States, even if it hurts. And I'm doing it thinking in 10 years, we're going to be fantastic. I'd say I was going to bring back jobs. I brought back jobs. It could be that, or it could be he's walling off the country for a war with China. How do I know which one those are? Like, that's what I mean when I like it's a coherent thing. If I take a darker view of this in regards to the Iran thing, only because there's a thread that has destroyed all of those other countries. Iran is the last one standing. Trump has a huge amount of neocons in his administration, and Israel has been going on a murder spree all throughout the Middle East, invading one country after the next. In their minds, this is our moment. This is our moment. Cut the head of the snake.
Yeah.
Is Trump on board? Is his political instincts like, I think that's going to be bad. I don't want to do that. Wick off. Go. Figure it out.
Yeah, no, for sure that's his instinct, because a war with Iran is not going to go the way that, it's not, Iran is not Gaza. Like, you're not going to come in and just pound the hell out of it. And Iran is also not Yemen, right? And look at how difficult Yemen has become for the Empire project, right? They have no answer to it. And besides killing civilians, destroying civilian infrastructure.
Slightly quibble with it. What they've decided to come up with is reignite a war. To get the Saudis involved. I don't know if you saw the reporting. The Saudis were bombing after the U.S. bombed. And so it was like, let's get a bunch of jihadists, a bunch of lunatics, religious maniacs, send back into a war to try to take the capital.
They want to do Syria, right? They want to do Syria 2.0. But the thing is that Yemen is not Syria. And the Yemeni government, the Ansar Allah-led government, is not the Assad government. They're completely different things and with completely different bases of support. Look at the images of like all the people who go out every Friday to support the Ansar Allah and Gaza. You're talking about millions of people in the streets of Sana'a, Sadah, Hodeida, even as the bombs are falling. So, it's not what you're expecting. In any case, Israel, I think they would be, because at this point, I think we can't really continue to ask the question like, oh, is the United States going to back them? The United States is going to back them. They're going to get their support. Maybe not in the way that they expected, maybe no, as fully as they would hope, because you would think that at least someone with the personality, let's say, of Donald Trump would not be very happy to be made look like a fool as diplomatic talks are taking place. And I think this is what stay in the hand of Israel at this point, is the unpredictability of a Donald Trump. But if push comes to shove, I don't think Israel is going to allow for a deal to take place, because, as you said, in this case, I am going to become one of those people that says, not Israel, but says Netanyahu, because Netanyahu in particular is the one who needs this war to continue. I think a lot of the Israeli government, most of the Israeli government, and a lot of the Israeli public are not opposed to actually going into war and cutting the head of the snake, as you said. But Netanyahu needs this, because Netanyahu, like, the walls are closing in from all sides. So unless he gets an out, right, which he probably will, with all of the corruption cases and the stuff with the Shin Bet and the stuff with the judicial overhaul and everything, the ICJ thing, which at this point is really like, nobody's going to arrest him. Let's be honest about that. And until he gets that, he's going to continue to push for war. It's the same reason why, at this point, even though there's discontent within the actual military, calls within the actual military to stop what's happening in Gaza and to get the captives, you have Netanyahu saying these calls are really responsible. There would be a reward for terrorism. And you have someone like his finance minister, this is a religious zealot, saying the captives are not the most important thing. Right? Just saying the quiet part out loud. They're saying the part that we, for example, at the Creator have been saying since October 8th, 2023. Now you have the Israeli official finally admitting it, because it's beyond apparent that they do not care about getting their captives back. And this is also why the U.S. has been approaching Hamas directly, right, via Qatar, They've been approaching again for talks again to get their own captives out of Gaza. And the one last thing I want to say is that in regards to Iran and in regards to the support that Israel would not get from the US, I think we should also look at all the diplomatic movements that have been happening outside of or around the talks, per se, right? You have the Iranian foreign minister is in China today. He was in Russia last week, the day before the talks. He was meeting with Putin. That same day, the Qatari prime minister was in Russia. The Omani Sultan, he was yesterday in Russia. The Saudi defense minister last week went to Tehran, and he sat down with Ayatollah Khamenei, who offered him, right? Khamenei is like, hey, you guys want to develop a nuclear program? We can help you. We have it already. And the Saudis, I'm sure, were like, yeah, sure, we'll think about it. But of course, Saudi Arabia is never going to let go of the hand of the US. But these movements are happening, right? This is all like the chess pieces are moving, because also at the same time, the Ukraine peace deal, where did it go, right? What happened to it? Where is that standing? Like, but that was supposed to be the thing that happened first, and it still hasn't happened. So I think you are seeing this alliance, right? The BRICS alliance at the end of the day, because Iran is part of BRICS, kind of also becoming very involved in what's happening with this war or this potential war. I'm sorry, because war with Iran is not beneficial for anyone, absolutely anyone, because Iran can, at the drop of a hat, stop all of the oil flowing through the Suez, not the Suez, the Hormuz, the Strait of Hormuz, and then what are you going to do? Right? What is China? What is Russia? What is Saudi? What is the UAE? Even the US to some extent, although I think they would be probably among the not so much hurt as the other nations. The European Union, right? They already lost.
They would be.
Suez Canal.
Yeah. I don't think they care about what Europe thinks. I think Vance is right. We don't care what Europe thinks. I think that's their policy. I mean, the Syrian war did not do Europe any favors in regards to the number of people who were fleeing into Europe. We still did it. Like, we were still, sending jihadists into the place, people fleeing out and they fleeing into Europe. Like, we didn't care. We still don't care. And Europe doesn't seem to be bright enough to even acknowledge that America was at fault for doing it. And so shutting down the oil maybe that's where its political instincts are, where it's like, if I do this, I am responsible for unpredictable chaos. Like unpredictable. And I mean literally unpredictable in regards to how Iran responds. If you cannot decapitate all of the missile systems in Iran, in a country 3 times the size of Iraq, then you're going to get hit. They may hit your troops. They may hit the oil fields in Saudi Arabia or some of these other Quisling governments. They may hit Israel directly. They will definitely shut down the Strait of Hormuz. Like, it's chaos. And I still say their military capability, I don't think we have a fair appraisal of that stuff in the way that we think we do. And the reason why I say that is, the appraisal of the US and Europe was, we could totally beat Russia. Oh, they're just a gas can. They're Nigeria with snow. They're just a gas can parading as a country. Obviously, we could take them down economically and militarily. Okay, not so much. Not so much. Like, it was Europe that fell apart. But that was their analysis. I mean, that's assuming they even did analysis. In their mind, I would wager they probably didn't even do it. It's just, of course, we could take him down economically. Oh, he passed. Oh, he'll be back. I'm assuming he will be back. There might have been some kind of thing that pulled him out, but hopefully he will come back. There we are. I was like, he's coming back. I know he's
something happened with my Wi-Fi. I'm sorry.
Oh, you're perfectly fine, dude. My Wi-Fi went down one day. Wilmer Leon was making this really emphatic point, and he was using very strong language to make that point, and it went down all at once.
Oh my God, that's horrible.
And he's like, "What the hell?" Like, it comes down at the moment where it's like the entire Wi-Fi in the entire apartment building went down, and rage, frustration, like just right in a cage. I can't even do anything about it. Just like, I didn't even have a phone, like, so I couldn't even call. I couldn't even call the guy to tell him, like, hey man, the Wi-Fi's down. Just like you're right in a cage. So totally get it, totally understand. So yeah, I don't know what Trump is going to do with this. God, man, I hope they get a deal. You have no idea. I find it to be utter chaos. And it's like, after talking to people in Iran, where you're talking about the deal and talking about the plan, it tethers you to them in some level. Like it makes it like these are just people. These are human beings like anybody else. And the notion that we are going to have a unilateral attack on another country that did nothing to us and is not threatening us is amazing. It's amazing. And the media just reports it like it's just straight news, like you're, reporting the weather.
Like
Yeah.
there's no other option, right? Like this is
Yeah.
literally the only way that things can happen.
It's somebody said they're part of BRICS, women. Right here. It says Iran is part of BRICS. BRICS cannot let the USA. Jamal, put on your membership in the drop down for a super chat. What? Put your my memberships are on. They're on. I promise you, they're on. They're on. They're on. And you just gave me a super chat. At least I think so. But look, I think a lot of people have this belief that if they are attacked, that Russia and China will get involved. Putin signed a security thing, security economic partnership yesterday, which seems to make a point. Maybe I'm wrong on this. It just seems to be very coincidental that this is the moment that he signs it. I don't doubt that Russia would help militarily in any way they can, meaning goods, services, etc. China may even do something similar. I don't know if they're getting militarily involved. Give me your take on it. I mean, for one, it will be an air war.
Yeah.
I don't think they're putting ground troops on. Like Netanyahu has this cartoonish vision of ground troops are going to go in and they're going to have air cover and they're going to take down the bombs. And it's like, dude, the bombs are all over the country. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
And even the U.S. thought, okay, this is farcical. That's why they did that. This is nonsense. I'm going to try to negotiate because what you're saying is just foolish right now. Do you think they would get involved militarily? Like, and just real quick, if you think of the First World War, where Archduke Ferdinand gets popped, nobody thought a war was going to take place. You have a podunk country in the middle of Europe that nobody ultimately cares about. Austria is trying to basically get Serbia to bow down. It's like we are trying to exert a certain control over you because you're getting kind of uppity. And Serbia, for the most part, is like, okay, we will take all of your provisions with the exception of you cannot run out courts. That is sovereign to us. Like, you're out of your mind. But they crafted that with the explicit know-how that they were going to reject it so they can go to war. Okay, that is pretty amazing, like how the events tumbled into this kind of larger conflict, what started off as a regional matter. And I'm saying, I feel that energy with this in a particular way, even though I can't necessarily think of the steps where it becomes that larger conflict, especially considering the sides and the power of these sides that are on this conflict in a way that it would function. Give me your take on that. Do you think that they would get militarily involved?
Not particularly. I mean, this is just my personal view. Just because of everything that's happened over the past, call me jaded, call me, anything you want. But I don't feel like China and Russia are really willing to start like themselves go get involved in the war. I think it could escalate into that, right? It could very easily because at this point anything's possible. Like you said, Russia has strategic defense agreements with Iran. The most important one, which is also the most recent one, calls for the other side to essentially not join, right? If Iran gets attacked, then Russia, per this agreement, cannot join the attack on Iran, and vice versa, right? They also have, these agreements with China, similar defense sharing, defense cooperation, the drills that they do, right? They do drills every year in the Persian Gulf with China, with Russia. So, like I said, it could happen. But I think something very important that you said is this is not going to be a ground war. Because first of all, Israel doesn't have enough troops. Like, what is he going to march them all the way to the Iranian border? I mean, now they have Syria. They do still have this army of ISIS. Oh, never forget the army of ISIS that is in the Syrian prisons, right? That now the US is starting to dismantle some of its bases in this area to give it to the Al Qaeda government in Damascus. They could activate that. The US is militarizing Diego Garcia. They have these long-range bombers. Maybe they can allow Israel to use them. The UK, right? The UK is also there. We don't often speak about how involved the UK is, not just in the genocide, in the attacks in Yemen, in everything that is happening in the region. They're still there. They might, be pushed by the US to be like, okay, you do it, and then we wait and see what happens with you. But Russia and China, I think there's going to be a very big push to end things diplomatically, first of all, right? No matter what Israel wants. And I think if Israel goes a rogue, as it often does, right, throughout its history, we might see the same thing that we are seeing now, right? That the U.S. starts just providing them with weapons and stuff. But with Iran, it's not going to work. It's not going to work in the long term. Even I remember last week I saw this quote from some Pentagon official who said, "You know what? Even if we attack Iran today, at best we're going to set back their nuclear program by about 3 months, because their facilities are built deep underground. You know, like Iran is a mountainous nation and a huge nation." With an army that they don't have air power, right? Iran cannot threaten anyone with air power.
Missiles,
They have the missile, their missile program, their long-range missile program. They have a very strong troops, right? Like the ground troops. They would defend the territory perfectly fine against any threat. And then, Iran, we don't know what their air defenses are like. I thought after the attack in Tehran, remember when they killed the Hamas chief, you would think they upgraded them significantly.
Yeah.
And but other than that, I think at this point we are going to see diplomacy continue until there's a breaking point. And the breaking point is probably going to be Israel, without a doubt, because Israel cannot afford diplomacy at the end of the day. Like, for example, with the Yemenis, right? I keep going back to the Yemeni question. They're not going to stop their attacks because Iran says, like, oh, we signed a nuclear deal. If the genocide in Gaza is still ongoing, if no aid enters Gaza, if no housing, medical supplies, etc., enters Gaza, if the Palestinians start getting displaced, then Yemen is going to act independently of whatever else is happening, and you still need to answer that question, right? And I feel like at the end of the day, even the nuclear deal is going to hinge on, is Israel going to stop the massacre? Is Israel going to stop the bloodshed in Gaza and permanently, right? Like even Hamas said yesterday, a Hamas official said, we are willing to discuss disarmament if we get a long-lasting truce, which is a huge if. It's a huge if. It's like, at this point, when we're talking about all of these wars, except maybe the Ukraine war, that's the linchpin. That's like what's holding everything back, is the fact that Israel is not willing to stop killing Palestinian families.
Right. And that is capitulation, literal.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying they shouldn't do it. I mean, for God's sake, 50,000 to 100,000 people get killed, most of which are women and children. I would imagine if you're Hamas, you want it to stop, right? Like, that's just a human thing of, this is unbelievable in regards to the level of barbarity that they're Israel is going with. I guess the thing is, though, the moment that you disarm.
Yeah. The resistance is over.
Right. Like it's thank you for your weapon. And now we're going in and taking it all. And like, I guess that's my thing. But it's kind of like the Second Amendment in the United States. Maybe that's my American point of view, right? Like, it's like, you gotta have the gun to defend yourself against the government. In this case, in literal terms, like but they're not going to accept that. They don't care. It's not about, look, from my point of view, the nuclear thing has nothing to do with nuclear energy. Israel just wants to take down Iran because it stands in their way of the greater Israel project that they're effectively going with. They've expanded in Syria, they're expanding in Lebanon, they're taking the West Bank, they're taking Gaza. They're going to create an apartheid state in Gaza and the West Bank. Trump will allow them to do it because he can't get rid of the Palestinians unless Israel just murders 2 million of them. So, so there's that, right? Hamas can say, I mean, this is a band of rebels. This is not a military. This is, people who get arms from this place and that place in order to have some level of resistance against a military with nuclear weapons. We should put that in context. And so it's like, okay, thank you for your gun. All of you are defenseless. We can do whatever we want, which is effectively what they've been doing anyway. So maybe there's not that big of a difference between it. And I do get it. But Hamas is making this. See, it's weird. It's the perception of Hamas. That's the issue. From the U.S. point of view, from Israel's point of view, well, this is a terrorist organization, despite the fact that Israel was funding these guys at one point in order to create this dichotomy between the West Bank and Gaza. It's their perception. This is kind of conversation I have Brian Beletic, where he's like,
Mhm.
This is going to be a weird analogy, but I think it makes the point. My ex-wife and I were in Iceland. We got married in Iceland. We're in Iceland.
Oh,
And we're
nice.
walking through this kind of park or something. And a swan or ducks had a bunch of ducklings behind it as it was going. And a swan jumps in, eats one of the baby ducklings, flies away. And everybody at the park was horrified. They was like, oh my God. And they started trying to hit the swan to get it to drop the dead baby duck at that point because they were aghast by the whole thing. And my wife was like, oh my God, I can't believe they did that. I was like, you just ate a hamburger. It's like, are you serious right now? Like, meaning the swan looks bad because the swan just murdered something in front of everybody.
Yeah.
But the hamburger was murdered by a butcher that you never see. And because
Yeah.
you never see that butcher, you're perfectly okay eating that hamburger. It's that. Hamas is a ragtag group that is a resistance group against an occupation.
Yeah.
If this was France, it would be okay because they're white. If it was, Britain or something like that under a Nazi occupation, it would be okay because they're white. They're not. They're Arabs. And as being Arabs, it is perfectly okay. The world has decided it is okay for you to be murdered and murdered en masse. And we won't do anything about it. We would just watch as you die in this humiliating death spiral that these guys are effectively doing. Despite Israel's barbarity, Hamas is still considered a terrorist organization, despite the fact that they're the ones pushing back against the barbarity.
Exactly.
And the fact that they are under occupation, I would argue they are what Israel made them to be. And I don't mean that in the sense that Israel created the group. I mean that in the sense of how you treat people is how they respond. It's like you playing chess. You make a move, you get aggressive with me, I'm going to try to push back. Same thing.
Exactly.
And so it's weird when we talk about it because many people don't see them in this light of resistance. They see them in this light of terrorism. And so it becomes okay for them to be killed. It becomes okay for Israel to say, well, we're going after Hamas. It becomes okay for Israel to do whatever they want, even though the level of barbarity is off the scale. Like you're talking about, okay, Israel might have killed, I don't know, 800 of its own people, whatever that number is. And on top of doing that, in fact, let's be maximalists. Let's say Hamas killed all of those people. Israel has killed like nearly 100,000 people, at least 51,000 that you know of ungodly numbers under the rubble, and they're still going. What did Syria have to do with it? What did Lebanon have to do with it? Like, this stuff is outrageous. But again, Hamas is seen in a particular way. It's very strange. Do you think they should give up their weapons at this point? And I guess maybe there's not a difference with them with their weapons or without, because they've been decimated to such a degree. But what's your take on that?
That's what I was going to say. Exactly what you were saying, right? Is there going to be even a difference at this point? Honestly,
yeah.
Although, well, just let's talk for a bit about numbers before I get to my actual thoughts. Israel admitted, the military admitted a few weeks ago that they haven't actually destroyed most of the tunnels underneath Gaza. That they've destroyed just a fraction of them. And that that, like, I think I've spoken with you about this before, that Hamas is constantly refilling is ranks, that even the weapons that are left in Gaza, or that the Hamas can take from the Israeli military, they're essentially refilling their capacities, their ammo supplies. But I think at this point, at this particular point, yes, I think Hamas really needs to sit down at the table. And if an actual truce can be offered, but then there's a problem, right?
They've tried.
Exactly.
They've tried over and over again. Like, that's the maddening part about this, right? They made the deal with Witkoff. Israel violated it all the way through. Didn't care one iota because they knew Trump wasn't going to do anything about it. They offered to back away from the government. Israel didn't care. They continued the killing spree. Like, they are being broken down in regards to their offers. Like, okay, what if we finally give up our weapons?
Yeah.
And I would wager to you, that's not even going to matter.
Yeah, it's not going to matter at this point. And because really the ball is completely on the other side. The ball is on the side that has dropped more than the equivalent of more than 6 nuclear bombs inside Gaza and killed so many children, so many women. When we're talking about the destruction of Gaza, we're not just talking about the buildings or the territory, even the dead, the people who have died. We're talking about the future. We're talking about generations to come. These are people who are going to have to deal. Whoever manages to survive, they're going to have to survive disease. They're going to have to survive malnourishment, etc. So stuff that is going to happen for generations. Remember what happened in Iraq when all of these people started getting cancer, right? Like all of these Iraqis started getting cancer from the aftermath of the bombs that were dropped there. So now think about what's going to happen in Gaza. You're talking about a literal war of extermination, a literal, we are in a few generations, these people are simply going to cease to exist. That's the goal of the Israeli occupation. I think it's really important, and I'm gonna what you said, right, of how Hamas is portrayed, how Hezbollah, how Ansarallah, how up to an extent even Iran is portrayed, right? Because the movements, right, the resistance movements, what they are is an indigenous resistance to occupation. They are natives of the land picking up weapons to fight against European or Western settlers that came in to kill their people, to steal their land, to take everything, to burn what they couldn't take to the ground. And that is that is a human right that is enshrined within the international law. Resistance to occupation by any means necessary. It's not like resistance to occupation by peaceful means and just march and make sittings. No, is if you need to pick up a weapon, you pick up a weapon because that is your right as a human with self-determination. That is simply that is not something that ever Western media is ever going to tell you. CNN, Fox News, MSNBC, you name it, BBC, Al Jazeera, even I would say, they are not going to tell you that this is enshrined in international law, because they have to keep this narrative, right? That has been the main driving narrative of not just geopolitics, but I would even say, like mass entertainment in the West, which is Arabs are terrorists and terrorists are bad. And that's it. Like, Muslims are terrorists and terrorists are bad. Even though the fact that, somebody's terrorist is somebody else's freedom fighter, this word is pretty meaningless. And this is why is used so widely. And so, just slapped on anything. Like the protest, right? The campus protest, Hamas supporters, terrorist supporters. What? The stuff that happened in Coachella last weekend, right? With the this message that was put on the screen. Like, I'm sure these Irish bands about to be branded a terrorist pretty soon. Anything, right? Anything at this point, anything that is part of the discourse, even our conversation, even what we're doing right now. Like, somebody's gonna, some Zionist can come in and be like, "Oh, look at these as terrorist supporters, whatever."
You can go fuck himself. I don't care.
Yeah, it's not, because sadly, reality should not be shaped to the perspective of a people who are willing to commit genocide simply because they got taken by surprise one day by the indigenous resistance that they have been oppressing for the past 76 years. Right? That's not an excuse to commit genocide. There's no excuse to commit genocide ever. Simply, let's agree on that at the very least. But they don't, so they
don't. Like, that's the wild part, right? Yeah. Even the political parties in the U.S., they don't. I showed the thing of Bernie Sanders, like, oh, the genocide word I don't particularly like, and people lost it. Some guys start screaming at Sanders.
How at one point they were saying that from the river to the sea is a terrorist slogan. I would say Israel has a right to defend itself is a real terrorist slogan at this point. On April 22nd, 2025, to say that Israel has a right to defend itself, that's supporting genocide. That's a terrorist slogan.
Every accusation is a confession, right? Human shields, the rapes. I mean, for God's sake, you can see it on TV. Like, they did it on camera, for God's sake. You can imagine what they're doing off camera.
Yeah, they put it on their social media, They happily put it on their social media for everyone.
Which is wild to me. Like, this was the same thing that was happening in Syria, right? Where Jelani's goons, his thugs, were out there effectively beating the shit out of children, murdering women, going into houses and killing, and filming themselves like, hey, I'm on vacation. Look at what I'm doing. Watch me kill this person. And you think to yourself, what happened to that guy? Like, I may call him a thug. I may call him, a whack job, a religious maniac, whatever. He's a person. He takes a dump, every other day or whatever, depending on his diet, right? He puts on shoes. He puts on a turban or whatever the hell he's wearing. I would hope he takes a shower every blue moon. He's a person. He feels... God, man, some of these references, I know these references a while, but I use them to try to make the point. Have you ever watched Invincible?
The what?
The cartoon. There's a cartoon called Invincible. It's like an anime.
Oh, no, I haven't. I heard about it.
It is fantastic.
Oh, wow. Okay.
There is a scene where this goon comes to Earth. This guy, I forget his name. And Invincible has to fight him. And the guy beats the shit out of Invincible. Up until the point where Invincible kind of gets his ire up and goes after the guy. But before that happens, he pins Invincible to the ground when he thinks he's about to kill him. And he turns and he goes to his ear. He says, I get sad sometimes. It was it's a shocking scene, right? This brute, this thug comes to Earth in order to like pacify Earth. And he's like, they don't even give me a name. They give me a title. They give me a mission. He's like, sometimes I cry at night. Like he's saying this stuff because he's about to kill him, believing that I need to purge my emotions and I can only do it in a man that I'm about to kill. I imagine that those people are people and they have the same drives, feelings, and everything else as human beings. And yet they've like morphed themselves, disfigured themselves into this thing that would go into a house and film themselves murdering somebody. What happened to that guy?
Yeah,
And
exactly.
there are thousands of them. I can't, it's hard to reconcile myself that that's a person. But it's a person.
You know,
To me. And real quick, I guess my point is, same thing with Israel. Like that fascist state, or Nazis, for example, they were also people. And yet they've morphed themselves into this disfigured version of humanity and to the tunes of thousands.
Yeah. No, indeed. Indeed. You know, and actually, I guess to bring it full circle, you know, you're talking to me about these maniacs, right? These maniacs who go around chopping people's head off, or just what's happening in Gaza, etc., filming themselves, and you wonder, right? And actually, what you made me think of is what's happening in Ecuador. And you know, I'm gonna go completely for circle in our conversation and mention that right now, for example, right, we were talking about Ecuador, how the homicide rate is just completely through the roof. A lot of these homicides are being committed by children. They're being committed by little boys who are, because right now in Ecuador, what you have is assassin schools. You have a school of assassins in which, you know, these boys who are poor, who are disenfranchised, who are marginalized, who some of them may even be trying to go to school. They get harassed by the gangs. Their school gets blackmailed by the gangs or attacked. Who knows? You know, like many of the things that can happen, and they end up in the hands of these criminals who shape them up to be who they need them to be, so that they can go kill someone without remorse, without thinking. You know, the cartels, right? They have these rituals in which they make their soldiers eat human meat, so go to dehumanize them, right? And it's the same practice at the end of the day. It's the same practice, the same mentality from whoever is turning you into this person, right? Because I don't think anybody, without any incitement, without any training, without any, you know, teaching, goes up and he just like picks up a weapon. Except, you know, if even I would say even like the school shooters, right, with the internet, etc. You don't just as a human being go and pick up a weapon and just start killing someone if you didn't already have something shaped in your head, or were shaped by something, be it the internet, be it the warlord, be it the drug cartel, be it the CIA, be it, you know, whoever it was. And it's the same thing, right? Like these maniacs in Syria, they are serving somebody's purpose. They're serving somebody else's purpose. In this case, Turkey and Israel, and the US, of course. In Israel, the soldiers who are in Gaza committing these atrocities, they are serving somebody's purpose. In this case, the Israeli government, right? So, and these children in the black cities of Ecuador, in the black neighborhoods of Ecuador, or just in the poor neighborhoods of Ecuador, they are serving somebody's purpose. And it's really, you know, that like at some point we need to understand that if we cut that flow, then we can actually cut off, you know, the head of the snake, I guess, so to speak. But until we do that, there's always going to be this rotating group of soldiers who will do anything they're told to do because it serves somebody else's purpose. And at some point, you know, like when I'm talking about the children, obviously, up to an extent, it's not their fault. Now, when we're talking about the Israeli soldiers, they know what they're doing. They know very well what they're doing. Same for ISIS. Same for, you know, all of these groups.
They don't seem to. Like, who the fuck films themselves like killing them? I watched a film, like, and I can never even show that stuff online because my channel gets shut down when I tried to show it.
No.
And then I watched this film where they beat the shit out of a 9-year-old girl, grown men. And I'm sitting here like the rage, like that you get with that. It is infuriating. The notion that is what you use your might and muscle to do. I will tell you, when I see Israelis get their ass kicked in foreign countries, I love it. I play the shit on.
Now the Thailand videos are amazing.
Those things are fantastic. One question before I let you go.
Sure.
So there's a report, and I didn't run this report because it has a lot of squirrely language in it. It's like Trump may go to speak to Erdogan, and he may ask him to use his airspace, and he may ask him to not get involved. Like it's like okay, none of this shit is real. If you're doing an article like this,
like so many
but
ways.
would Erdogan allow Trump to use his airspace for an attack on Iran?
They are NATO partners. It's possible, right? I think what happened in Syria at the end of the day, it was Turkey kind of trying to take Iran's spot in a way in the dynamics of the region, right?
Yeah.
Syria was for a very long time Iran's protectorate, in many ways. Now Turkey is like they are stepping in and they're like, no, I want that, and you can go, and sit over there at the end. They are two, Islamic republics, one Sunni, one Shiite. So yeah, I would. If push comes to shove with Erdogan, really, I think the push needs to be very small at the end of the day. This man is a chameleon. The Turks are chameleonic. They're like one day talking with this person, the next day with the other person. They're just willing to work out anything with anyone. So I do think that Turkey is very likely to allow that, or even help Israel. Like for all we know, maybe the Turks are going to help Israel.
To back you up on that point. Do you remember when Erdogan was like, Netanyahu is Hitler? And then when Syria fell, Israel and Turkey were working hand in hand in that. Meaning you were working with that Hitler. And when Israel exposed it, he's like, oh, that's outrageous. That's not to happen. Blah, blah, blah. It's like, dude, you guys were literally working in coordination, taking stuff like simultaneously. Obviously, you were working together. So yeah, you're right. I wouldn't be shocked. I mean, apparently they're trying to make deals over Syria now to carve it up. So
yeah. But it's you cannot trust them very much because, as you say, they have no word. Like Erdogan goes and says one thing, and then behind the scenes does something completely different. How can you trust?
Esteban, this has been a fantastic, wide-ranging conversation, and we have 655 people here to hear this conversation. What's funny and what sucks, I always tell people they got to eat their peas on some of the stuff because I want to hit other areas of the world. When we were talking about Ecuador, it dropped to like 575. When we got on that conversation, it went all the way up to like 665 or something like that. It's like, okay, I get the hint. I get
what you're interested in. Yeah. But sadly, like I said, this stuff is happening everywhere, right?
Yeah.
I mean, some of them we don't hear about, and others we hear about constantly.
I got to hit Sudan at some point with somebody because the audience continuously is like, you're not covering Sudan. You're not covering Sudan. It's like, dude, I need to. When Kofi comes back, Kofi can do it. Thank you, my man. Esteban Carrillo. He is an Ecuadorian journalist currently writing for The Cradle. Previously with Tell Us Our English. Fantastic guests and great conversation, man. Thank you for this.
Thank you, Jamarlt. Thank you to everyone who joined, and hope you will get better soon with the hand and all of that.
Oh, it's healing. I'm okay. I got my phone. The phone is the thing that I needed. The hand will heal.
Okay.
You have a good one, man. Be safe.
I'm gonna head out. Bye-bye.
Have a good one.